Another week of people, power, and politics is almost in the books, and we're getting into it tonight. This is The Pulse, and I'm Taryn Asher. A busy day at the Supreme Court. Several massive rulings just dropped. We're breaking down the big ones and what they mean for you. We're also taking a closer look at the proposed Medicaid cuts in President Trump's big, beautiful bill. But the Ark of MCOM executive director, Lisa Lapine, along with Shelley Petty and her daughter, Haley, they know firsthand how critical these benefits are and how much they are needed. They'll be weighing in, and we'll talk about it tonight. Also, immigration attorney Eli Mawad is here to break down the High Court's ruling regarding birthright citizenship. And that's where we begin tonight. The opinion of the Supreme Court will have a big impact, but maybe not in the way you may think. The justices ruled lower court judges can no longer issue nationwide preliminary injunctions or a ruling that blocks and orders enforcement for the entire country. Right now, President Trump is calling it a victory because the ruling is set to expand his power, and he says he plans to use it. Regardless, the case now goes to the lower courts, where judges will determine how to rule on cases according to the Supreme Court's order. It won't be enforced for 30 days, but is birthright citizenship protected under the 14th Amendment? Exact details of Trump's executive order remain to be seen, but the actions of the Supreme Court today stirring plenty of reaction.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch.
It's really surprising that the Supreme Court chose the birthright citizenship question as the vehicle for ending nationwide injunctions. It's going to create a lot more chaos.
Check out some of the reaction on our Fox 2 Facebook page. Laura says she's never been more ashamed or saddened by the state of our country. Sue says, quote, I guess the Constitution means nothing anymore. Meanwhile, Mark says, promises made, promises kept. And Joe says he's making all the right moves. If you want to weigh in, head over to our Fox 2 Facebook page and make your voice heard. Other key rulings from the Supreme Court today, the justices preserving a key part of the Affordable Care Act's preventative care coverage requirements. Christian employers were challenging that provision about how the government decides what medications and services must be fully covered by private insurance. It could have impacted everything from lung cancer screenings, HIV prevention, drugs, and then medicine to lower the chance of breast cancer for women. Well, the justices also ruled Maryland parents can pull their kids from public school lessons using LGBTQ books. They say the lack of an opt-out harms parents' rights to exercise their religion. The ruling was all along ideological lines, and Justice Sonia Sotomayor says that exposure to different views in a multicultural society is just a key feature of public schools. The justices also upheld a law aimed at making sure kids can't watch pornography online. Nearly half of U.S. states have age verification laws in place. And the Texas law was challenged on free speech grounds, but the 6-3 ruling said the law doesn't impact people's First Amendment rights. All eyes on Capitol Hill as senators scramble to try and get President Trump's budget bill to his desk by his July 4th deadline. We told you yesterday about the Senate parliamentarian ruling the Medicaid provider tax overhaul violates Senate rules. Almost all states impose it to some degree on hospitals and other clinics serving Medicaid patients. Republicans are counting on cuts to Medicaid and other programs to pay for President Trump's tax cuts, but House Republicans worry the Senate will make too many changes to their hard work.
The Senate wants to be able to avoid some of these cuts and these savings, and they want to be able to blame it on the parliamentarian. So don't blame the parliamentarian.
They really should go back to the drawing board because of the parliamentarian ruling, because the American people are passionately and widely opposed to cuts in Medicaid and food assistance.
And another part of the bill struck down by the parliamentarian had to do with cuts to Medicaid for non-citizens. A lot going on, as always, in the world of politics. So let's pick up the pace and run through some of our other big stories tonight. President Trump says he's immediately suspending trade talks with Canada because the country plans on moving forward with its tax on technology firms. That tax is set to take effect on Monday. It'll hit companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, even Uber and Airbnb, with a tax on revenue from Canadian users. Trump called that a direct attack on the U.S. The U.S. and Canada had been in talks about easing the president's tariffs on our northern neighbor. Well, President Trump also says he expects Iran to open itself to international inspection. And of course, the goal of that to verify if it doesn't restart its nuclear program. They may want to make sure of that. He claims the country would need to cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and that's the UN nuclear watchdog. Iran's top diplomat says negotiations with the U.S. are complicated by last weekend's airstrikes, and he says the strikes caused serious damage. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announces Friday the USNS Harvey Milk will be renamed after a World War II sailor who received the Medal of Honor. The ship's new name will honor Oscar Peterson, who posthumously got the medal for his actions during the 1942 Battle of the Coral Sea. Milk was a gay rights activist who served during the Korean War, and he became one of the first openly gay candidates elected to public office in San Francisco before a disgruntled former city supervisor killed him. Hegseth made the announcement during Pride Month, saying he's taking politics out of ship naming. And we're taking a closer look at the proposed Medicaid cuts and the impact right after the break. And a mother and daughter who knows just how important these benefits are. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Well, back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. And joining us to discuss these proposed cuts to Medicaid, the Ark of MCOM Executive Director Lisa Lapine is here. And then Shelley and Haley Petty, a mother and a daughter who are really going to know firsthand how critical these cuts could be. And we're going to start, though, with you, Lisa, because you not only are an executive director, you are an attorney that really knows the legalities of all of this. But these Medicaid serves how much of your funding? 87% of your funding, and what you provide, how much of an impact will this have on your patients?
87% of the Ark of MCOM's budget comes from Medicaid, and we provide support services, staffing, day program, respite to people with developmental disabilities. We have a staff of about 120 people. Cuts to Medicaid will mean direct cuts to our services, both in the way that we provide the services to the people that we are currently supporting and to the staff that we have available to provide those services.
We're going to put a face on this right now because we want to be able to show. Shelley, your daughter, your beautiful daughter Haley here, she was diagnosed with several things when she was born, but she needs 24-hour care. What sort of things does she have to deal with on a daily basis, first of all?
So with her diagnoses of Rett syndrome, Lennox-Gastaut, and propriospinal myoclonus, she battles seizures on a daily basis. She has reflux. She's incontinent. She does not walk. She's nonverbal. She's had spine surgeries, chronic shaking and clonus, and movement disorders.
She's 23 years old. This has been a long time, and it requires a lot of care. 13 doctors, 3 insurance policies. I think you said you pay out of pocket. You have 5 service companies. I mean, obviously, there's a lot that goes into making sure that this family, your family, that she's able to function on a daily basis. What will this mean to you, these cuts? How will your life change?
So Haley is 23, and as any adult, she deserves her independence. And if we lose Medicaid and these cuts become real, she will lose that independence. Right now she has a nurse and a caregiver that come and help her. And it allows us freedom to be with our other children, and it allows everybody to have their own space and their own lives and still function as a family. And without that Medicaid, she loses that nurse, she loses that caregiver, she loses her independence. She's a joyful, fun person who likes to be social. She plays challenger baseball, and she just will lose that, and she'll lose coverage in general, medications, and all of that then will make us have to pay out of pocket.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. How much more are you going to have to pay? I mean, and many people are not going to be able to.
No. So Haley is on a medication that is dispensed as written, which means she cannot have the generic. And it is $1,200 a month that insurance currently pays. So if we don't have this Medicaid to help us pay that, we will have to pay $1,200 a month out of pocket on top of what we already pay. I am not able to work because of all of
because you don't have a
things.
nurse inside. You're not taking advantage of the system. No, I mean, not that many
Right.
people do, but you really do a lot of the work yourself.
Yes.
And it's hard. I mean, do you worry about her health moving forward?
I do. Haley's had multiple surgeries. You know, when we're in the hospital, our family is separated. We have to switch into this medical mode where we have to just separate and do everything, you know, and it's very hard on our family. And I worry about that. I worry about her health going forward. I worry about what will happen to her when I'm gone.
Right.
And who will care for her. And if Medicaid is not there to do what it's supposed to and do that long-term care and provide that service, then who will do it and where will she go?
That's really scary, at least when you hear that, though, because the states also are going to have to bear a lot of that responsibility, and certain people in certain areas are not going to be able to afford it. I mean, there are lives in danger here.
There are lives in danger, and the important part to recognize is that currently Medicaid is a shared program federally. The federal government gives us some dollars, and the state partners with the federal government to provide that. Long-term care is provided and funded by Medicaid for seniors, for people with developmental disabilities, for folks who can't afford health insurance. It supports rural hospitals. There are large numbers of people whose very lives will be at risk without these dollars.
I mean, we're talking about not only the patients, the clients, the people who benefit from the services, but also the workers. They'll lose pay. I mean, what will happen to the Ark of MCOM?
We won't look at all like we look currently. Currently, we're blessed to have approximately 100 staff, and we will not have that. It'll be questionable whether we will actually be here if the cuts come through.
Do you think that our administration really knows the impact that this will have on people like Shelley and Haley?
I hope that they don't.
It's a little frightening to think that what are people going to do? What are they going to be forced to do when they don't receive that care? Where do they go? So let's say that there's an emergency. What happens then?
Well, if you think about it, back in 1970, we started looking at state hospitals and saying this isn't the way that we want people with disabilities to live. And we started moving folks into the community, and families were able to keep their children home. They weren't forced to give their children up at birth. In the event that we continue to go backward, as we are predicting that these cuts will make us do, I have very serious concerns and reservations that we'll go back to the state hospital scheme.
Well, that's scary because we don't have that many
We don't have any.
at all
We don't
after
have any.
Engler administration. So that's going to put people, I mean, and if you can't afford this,
Right?
are you preparing right now for the possibility of what this could cost you? Or how do you?
Unfortunately, because of our daily things that we face, we can't. My husband has a wonderful job. He makes a very good living, but he still is the only income coming in. And if we have to pay out of pocket for nursing and home and community-based services and medications, we could do that for a few months, maybe 2, 3, and then we would have to put our house up for sale to try to pay for that. And eventually, you know, we would lose it all. And I think that the thing that's important is not only does this affect Haley and my husband and I and our livelihood, this then will affect my children. So there are whole families that will go from being able to live and survive to not having anything, not having a home, not having their livelihood, you know, being homeless, needing support and needing financial help. And where will they go if those services are not there and that money is not there for low-income families?
And that is scary, and we keep saying that, but the parliamentarian came in today and did say some things that they put in this bill are not legal. And there's a little bit of hope in that.
There is a little bit of hope in that, yes.
So what does that mean to you? Or what are you hoping for at this point?
I'm hoping that it means that they're going to revisit all of their decision-making and make some other choices, but I still fear that that won't be the case. $808 billion is a lot of money, and there's not a lot of flexible spending at the federal level outside of Medicaid.
I mean, you do fundraising, but if all of these organizations that help people need that, those dollars, they're not going to be a lot to go around.
There will not.
And you see the other impact as well. I mean, when anybody has an emergency, though, and they rely on Medicaid, they're all going to be going to the emergency room. And then what? I mean, you're going to have overloaded systems, people dying. I heard something like 51,000 people a year could lose their lives if this goes into impact disabled people.
And that's just persons with disabilities. That doesn't include all the people who rely on Medicaid to give birth. That doesn't rely on all the folks that rely on long-term care to live in nursing homes.
Yeah. And I get an estimate about 10.9 million people that are uninsured, and they rely on this, so they could be impacted. But we appreciate you being here and sharing your story, and Haley too. Honestly, it's she looks so pretty today, so she was very excited to be on with us. So thank you both.
Thank you so much.
All right, the Supreme Court's birthright citizenship ruling leaving a lot more questions than answers. We're talking with immigration attorney Eli Wad. Next, the Pulse is back in 3 minutes. It's people, power, and politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This is The Pulse. And joining us now to talk about, well, we'll say the unknowns after the birthright citizenship ruling is immigration attorney Eli Wad. And we always appreciate you being with us here in the studio.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. This is a little complicated because it seemed almost that they didn't rule on it, but yet they did. It will, and the president, we heard earlier, saying this was a victory.
Right.
So how will this give him more power with how they voted today?
Well, he's going to try to appeal his administrative orders or litigate his administrative orders in the friendly Republican districts, federal courts, states, whatever you want to call it, and try to whittle away at some of and keep his powers in some of these states. It makes no sense because really you need conformity across the United States. You're not going to have that.
I know, it's kicking it again down to the states.
It's,
why do we even
right.
need a federal government at
Right.
this point, it feels
Right.
like, but
Right.
it's kicking it to the states, and
Right.
it's in a particular area. If there's a current lawsuit, from what I understand, in
Right.
that state,
Right.
then they're able to fight it, but if not, these could be enforced right now.
Yeah, it makes no sense having different jurisdictions and having different rulings and not having conformity on this issue. This is a major national issue. Why do you want this all confused? Why do you, some people are maybe go move to another state. It's just going to cause chaos, in my opinion.
So if I'm a pregnant woman, I go to the hospital, do I have to bring my ID, show my birth, where I was born, my passport maybe? I mean, what do I do?
You would hope not. So if you're somebody coming here on a vacation, and like say from the Middle East, right? Probably you can't have your child be a citizen. Why? Because you don't reside in a state in the United States, because that's what the 14th Amendment says. So if we take the 14th Amendment, we say born or naturalized in the United States and reside in a state. But the 14th Amendment doesn't say if you're here unlawfully you can't be a citizen. It's the reading of the Constitution of the 14th Amendment does not. I don't read it the way that the way it's going. Basically.
To be clear, though, that you would have to then amend the 14th, or put an amendment on it, and that would take Congress to approve that.
It would.
It would take a lot to make that happen, and it's not been done that we know of.
I can't remember. I don't know about you, but I can't remember in my lifetime it happening. But you're right about that. It has to have a congressional relief for something like that. I don't know how the U.S. Supreme Court's why they're even. It'll go up to them, obviously.
Right.
We'll see what they do.
But right now, it's going to the lower courts.
Going to the lower
Can you
courts.
explain how that works and what really needs to be done? Because basically it's saying, hey, one federal judge can't make a ruling for everybody else.
So every federal court, like we'll take our court, we have the United States Eastern District of Michigan, right? So we have the Michigan map, and if I'm drawing it right, this is kind of our jurisdiction for that court. Then you have the Western District, then you have the Northern District, right? Mm-hmm. So if that district judge in our Eastern District makes a ruling, the way I'm reading the ruling, it only applies to the Eastern District of United States, Eastern District of Michigan, excuse me, because Western District of Michigan hasn't ruled on it. They can make their own ruling. It's chaos. You could legitimately have 3 rulings in 3 United States District Court territories in the state of Michigan. It just doesn't make any sense.
But the Supreme Court ruled on that today.
I can't tell you I agree with it. I can't. I think it's going to cause chaos. I really do. I just think that it's a poor ruling, and the reading of the 14th Amendment, I think, is very straight. Mm-hmm. If you're born or naturalized in the United States and you reside in a state, you're a citizen.
So the next 30 days, it doesn't, I mean,
Right.
What does that mean? 30 days, it takes effect. So what's going to happen during these 30 days?
I think they're trying to have people informed of it, and so people don't come here to the United States and try to have kids. That's the only thing I can think of as to why they're holding off on 30 days. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. It's not a very well-defined ruling.
So if I have a baby between those 30 days, what does that mean? Do I have to? I mean, that's the whole thing. I think there's a lot of unknowns here.
I think if you have a baby in the next 30 days, but you actually reside in one of the states, I think the child is born or naturalized, born in the United States and lives in the state. I think they're a citizen. And then after that, they're saying no. Does it make any sense? It doesn't.
So it depends, and then maybe perhaps some of the conservative states would see it one way, where some of the more liberal states would see it another.
Right.
You could see people moving just because of that simple issue. Could you? Or, I mean, if I was illegal one place, but I could be perhaps legal another?
Yeah, Taryn, it's the same thing as abortion. Every state now has the right to make up their abortion laws. So it's the same issue. You have the chaotic law on abortion where now it's up to the states. It's kind of the same thing you're doing here.
So, but this really does, does this also apply with other issues besides birthright citizenship then, and of course abortion?
Yeah.
I mean, this is across the board.
This is across the board. You can't have an injunction of a district federal court judge apply to the whole country anymore. So it could be any issue.
It's going to be hard for people to keep this straight.
Yeah, it's going to be a scoreboard. We'll see what happens, but I agree with you. It's going to be very hard. I didn't understand that ruling, and I really.
But they haven't really voted on the birthright citizenship focused.
Haven't. You're right. They haven't. And
will they?
I think that Congress is going to have to figure out a way to step in on this, whether they do or not, because President Trump now feels it's a victory. I can't see a lot of the Republicans coming up with any congressional articles or whatever you want to vote on. I just don't see it happening. Not with the majority.
Well, you know
the Senate.
There's going to be a lot of back and forth, especially over the next 30 days.
Right.
And then we have the big, beautiful bill meantime.
I would have never touched the birthright issue. It's been here as long as I've been born. It's been an issue. And I don't understand it. I think
it's a lot different than keeping criminals out from the border here. So, I mean, it looks like it looks very very general, if you will.
I agree. Yes. I agree with you. It is general, but I call it chaotic, is what I call it.
Let's go with that. All right. On that note, Eli, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Taryn.
And that is the Pulse for tonight. We do appreciate you joining us. I'm Taryn Asher. Have a great weekend, everyone.